We know that we can never undo the grave abuses committed by clergy in the past. However, we can reaffirm in the strongest ways possible our sacred duty to protect children by continuing.
This is Bartholomew Town. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Today, a long-awaited report on child sexual abuse inside the Providence Catholic Diocese. Attorney General Peter Neronha says investigators identified dozens of alleged abusers and hundreds of victims spanning decades. What did investigators find? Why did it take years to complete? And what accountability comes next? The Attorney General joins me today.
Bartholomew Town.
Last week, the Rhode Island Attorney General's office released the results of a sweeping investigation into clergy sexual abuse in the Roman Catholic Diocese of Providence. The report documents decades of abuse, institutional failures, and allegations involving at least 72 clergy members. Investigators say hundreds of victims came forward during the review, some describing abuse that took place as far back as the 1950s. The investigation followed a nationwide push for accountability after the landmark Pennsylvania grand jury report in 2018. Rhode Island is somewhat unique. State law prevented prosecutors from convening a traditional grand jury investigation, so Attorney General Neronha assembled a special investigative team and relied on voluntary testimony and diocesan records. The result is one of the most comprehensive looks at how abuse allegations were handled, and in many cases, mishandled inside Rhode Island's Catholic Church. Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online. Are you ready to take the next step in your career at URI Online? We offer business and leadership-focused programs designed to fit your life. Whether your goal is to advance your career in fields like public administration, supply chain management, or training and development, our online programs provide the flexibility you need with a high-quality education you deserve. Learn from experienced faculty and collaborate with a network of professionals, all from the comfort of your home or wherever life takes you. Visit uri.edu/online to explore programs and start building your future today. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. Attorney General Neronha joins me in 30 seconds.
You and your employees work hard for your customers. At HealthSource RI for Employers, we work hard for all of you. We offer access to 18 quality health insurance plans plus dental, flexible costs to meet your budget and get your staff what they need, and customized local support to guide you through it all. More than 1,200 Rhode Island employers choose health insurance through us. HealthSource RI. We work for you. HealthSourceRI.com/employers.
General, obviously a comprehensive report. It's been enough time now since its release that it has swirled around. One thing that we've noticed is on the day of the release, we kind of got a double-edged response from the diocese, a video from Bishop Lewandowski that was a little bit more apologetic, and then a lengthy statement from really their spokesperson that was much more critical of the nature of the investigation. Are you satisfied that this was the right thing to do and you went about it the right way?
Oh, yes, very much so. I think that there have been some dioceses across the country that in the wake of reports like these, or even without them, have stepped up and done the right thing and acknowledged they should, responsibility they do have. And the Diocese of Providence is reflected in that statement. This person, clearly hasn't. The bishop, his words were more encouraging. He, after all, is the leader, and you wonder if Gail is wagging the dog, frankly. I see this a lot in this job, that these spokespeople think they have to know to do this. Here, anyone can just read the analysis on our site. They can read the executive summary. They can plow through it. They can go to the indices. But I think a reasonable person would conclude that the church has a real responsibility to take on here, and the spokesperson just doesn't seem to get it. If I were the diocese, I'd be moving on from him in a heartbeat, frankly. Yeah,
it's interesting. It's also been, just trying to schedule the bishop from wearing my hat as a radio producer. They've been kind of back and forth on emails about, well, he's out of town. Oh, actually, no, we'll let our statement stand. It just seems like this is one of those moments where you'd be better off being completely transparent and kind of just going with the flow of the investigation that you produced. But Do you suspect that, by and large, in spite of these statements from their spokesperson of the diocese, that this has been well received by the general public? What kind of feedback have you gotten outside of the diocese?
Yeah. Look, I think that, it's always a little dangerous to sort of talk about how the overall public is responding. I do take some encouragement when, I was in the Home Depot parking lot over the weekend, and some very nice lady came over and tapped on, as I was looking down on my phone before I drove off, before I started the car, just put a thumbs up and said, "Great job." And so, but you don't want to take too much away from that, because the people think you did a crappy job often, but not always. Don't come over. But what I am most encouraged about are what I've heard from supporters, and they really view the report as life-changing. Surprised me a little bit, just the impact that they feel validated and encouraged. And having been discredited, or the church has attempted for long, they've really seen and heard because of the report. The team and I were gratified by that. I mean, we really did want to take the time. Not himself available. Apparently not. I think it's another example of being handled. And one thing I learned both as attorney and as AG is, look, you have meeting people around you that want to go by the traditional playbook of we what's best for you as the leader, because we're your media person. Well, I view the media person as a liaison and as someone who can put what I want to say in writing, sometimes, or otherwise, and message it. But at the end of the day, who makes the decisions about how much access I ought to have, or how much access there ought to be to me. And I don't like being quote unquote handled. And I think a lot of leaders, perhaps inexperienced ones, allow themselves to be handled by people who don't do them or the institution in the first service. So that could be what's happening here.
Yeah, very interesting scenario, no doubt. Looking at the report, by the way, linked in our show notes right now for anybody who wants to read it. It'll link you directly to the Attorney General's website, and there's also survivor resources available as well. Lastly here, just looking forward, you've advocated for some specific statutory changes, but even in a utopian type of situation where everybody said, you know what, we want to do exactly what the AG says. We're going to move the needle. We're going to move the ball immediately. What kind of practical and even somewhat dream level statutory changes could be made that you're both advocating for or would like to see in the future that could prevent something like what happened with the Catholic Diocese over the last 75 years from ever happening again?
Yeah, one of them is second-degree child molestations or second-degree sexual assaults. And what that is sexual contact as opposed to sexual penetration. And those things are defined by statute. But, think groping, fondling, those kinds of sexually assaultive behavior. One of the biggest challenges in those cases is a 3-year statute of limitations, which is far, far too short, particularly given that victims tend to come forward the younger they are. In particular, some in our report we found on average 26 years later. Well, obviously, in a penetration case, a first-degree child molestation, there's no statute of limitations at all. We have advocated repeatedly for anywhere from a 30-year to 10-year. I think it should be as high as possible. I think 30 years is appropriate. We've had a hard time with the General Assembly with this for a number of years. So that needs to change. Certainly the ability of victims to sue the Catholic Church or other institutions. The Catholic Church, which is the McAtee bill, Annie's Law, would go a long way to ensuring that entities that face or institutions that have these people in their workforce don't try to cover it, but come forward in a way. this is not a problem that's going away. I've been trusted for a long time, and now I leave the office, but I was on the line in the AG's office 25 years ago. There were an enormous number of child molestations happening then. There's an enormous number now, as many as 400 to 500 a year. I have 10 lawyers prosecuting those cases. It's the biggest unit in the office. So this is a problem that's not going away, and there are lots of things that we can do legislatively to make sure that we hold people accountable. There are a lot of preventative measures that we could also do. The church has some policy changes they ought to make, and we recommend those too. So there's a lot to be done here still, and a lot of room for vigilance. The other concern I have about the diocese is they would have you believe this is all ancient history. It's not. Bishop Tobin himself just years ago was recommending that a priest whose acts the bishop himself called repugnant did not want him dismissed from the priesthood. There's a lot of room for the church to get better and for the situation to get better overall for victims. And as long as I'm in office for the 10 months that I have left, a little less than that, I'm going to do everything I can to advance those changes. And I know that my successor will do the same.
It's interesting you note that, because for survivors or anybody who is touched by the lives of survivors, as long as those people are alive, this is a contemporary story. And so the framing of this, as you say, as ancient history is offensive and tone deaf in a way that's almost hard to believe could still be the case in 2026. But no doubt the report, it's right there, like you say, it's right there for everybody to read. Again, for the third time I've said this, it's linked in our show notes. Attorney General Neronha, thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Bill. It's always good to be with you.
That's Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Neronha discussing the newly released report on clergy sexual abuse in the Providence Catholic Diocese. You can read the full report and resources for survivors in the show notes. I'm Bill Bartholomew. This is Bartholomew Town. Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by Newport Film. Visit newportfilm.com for all the latest screening details.